Welcome back to the Parallel Universe. I'm your host, Logan Bruce, and in the Square Table Studios, I have my good friend, Dean Garrett. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic, Logan. Happy to be here, back on the Parallel Universe.
Well, I appreciate you coming by. I know everyone's busy, so it's good that you stopped by and have a conversation with us.
Love to.
Okay, so you came up with this thought. You had this thought, and I was like,
It's rare. It happens sometimes.
Well, sometimes I have them too. So you had this idea or this thought that, what's more accurate when it comes to comic books? The cartoons that they, came from, the comic books or the movies. So I was like, that's very interesting. Because people who have never read the comic and only seen the cartoons and watched the movies, they may think, hey, this is how it is. Especially if you've never seen the cartoon version of these comics and you just seen the movies. Right. And you're thinking, hey, the movie is awesome. And a lot of us are like, wait a minute, man, this ain't right. Okay, so.
Felt like that a lot over the years.
Yes, some of the movies have kind of not been up to par. I would say to fans,
right.
Aspects and everything. Okay, so give me, so what is a cartoon or comic that you're familiar with and that you've seen the movies? And I know you had mentioned something about X-Men, a little bit about them.
Right. The earliest cartoons I remember about superheroes was the Super Friends. And that informed a large part of what I thought superheroes were until the Incredible Hulk TV show came out. And then I became obsessed with the Hulk. Because I was a kid, I was into monsters and stuff. So the Hulk was incredible. And so I started watching the Hulk cartoon that came on Saturday mornings, and that was like some kind of power hour with Spider-Man and his amazing friends, and that was the first time I saw the X-Men on that program, and that was like blew my mind. And then I saw a couple of the characters, specifically Wolverine, as a toy in the Secret Wars.
Okay.
And so that was like, I gotta have that.
Of course. Okay, so since you were familiar with the X-Men from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and that's where I got introduced to Wolverine as well. I know a lot of people say, oh, he had kind of an Australian accent and stuff. I loved it. It was wonderful.
Did he have an Australian accent in Spider-Man? Because there was a Spider-Man pilot, or not a Spider-Man, X-Men pilot. Came out in like 87, 88.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they didn't release it, but they put it on like a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And I had that VHS at one point. I had it. And he definitely had an Australian accent in that.
Yeah, and I want to say in Spider-Man, and maybe whatever his accent was, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was like, this is awesome. I just loved it.
So when the Fox X-Men cartoon of the '90s came along, and you heard Wolverine, were you like, wait a minute, where's the accent at?
No, because it still gave him that scruffy voice. So as long as that was, and I think maybe that's what it was, especially with the ones I saw, he still had that scruffy, kind of growl, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's it,
So a lot of people point back to that Fox cartoon in the '90s and say that was the pinnacle of X-Men for them. Do you feel like that, Logan?
I do, because like you said, they had mentioned a pilot that never came out. They actually had one called The Pride of the X-Men.
That was
okay, and that didn't work out for anybody. So that '90s one that came out, that's when people finally were like, "This is what we've been waiting for," and that of course blew up and it made the cartoon of the X-Men. It kind of just brought that to forward, and everybody was really.
In your opinion, was there any differences between, like, what was the major difference between the cartoon, the Fox '90s cartoon, and the X-Men comic? Were you reading X-Men comics?
Yeah, I was definitely doing that. But the difference is, to me, they didn't have the original five. I talk about that a lot. Maybe because everybody wanted to see Wolverine and everything. But the beginning, if you're going to come out with the story, tell the story, So so that was, of course, wasn't comic accurate because, of course, we all know who the first five were. And then they tried to incorporate them later, and I'm like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to put them in here later in the story when they should have been in the beginning? Because if you never saw or never read the comic book and then you see this cartoon, you're thinking this is how it is, and it won't. So, but so that was an inaccuracy on their part. But how did you feel about it? Because you grew up reading those as well. So.
I did, but I didn't really watch the Fox '90s cartoon that much.
Okay.
I was kind of I was in my 20s at that point, so I was or kind of in high school, kind of about to go into my 20s. So I was my brain was elsewhere.
Okay, yeah,
I wasn't paying attention too much to it, but I do remember. I do remember when the first X-Men movie came out.
Okay, all right. So
I absolutely love that.
Okay.
I mean, that was a revelation. That was like it was like the first time I was watching a movie where there was a character on screen using a superpower.
Okay.
Everything before that had been, that's fake. That's just what they can do because it's a TV budget. But this on screen, when Magneto reached out his hand and the gates came down, I was like, that's a superpower.
Right.
I've actually seen a superpower. It was a good feeling, and I get why they focused on Wolverine. He is the most popular character, and I love the movie. I mean, it's not perfect, the costumes, but at the time, it was like the best that you could get.
Yeah, I agree. I did, and of course there are some similarities in the movie with with the comic, but of course there were some differences, especially with Rogue and Magneto. A lot of people who, if you just saw the movie and you never read the comic, you would not know that Rogue used to be with Magneto. So yeah, Mitchie, you raised your hand over there like we in class. You have something you want to say?
I also did not know.
See that's the younger generation who never read the comic book.
It feels like in the first movie they took a character and they assigned it the character Rogue, and then they just kind of jumbled up Jubilee and Rogue and Kitty Pryde all in the same character.
That's pretty much what they did, because they were in the comic books, of course. Wolverine and Jubilee were kind of like not a couple, but they were like a...
Well, in the comics, it was Kitty Pryde, right? And in the cartoon, it was Jubilee. Then they switched it up.
Yeah, they switched up a little bit, yeah.
And they switched it up again in the movies.
In the movie. So it was everything, like you said, they took all three of them and kind of threw them together and had this one person. And
now, when that movie came out, did you like the first X-Men movie?
I did. I liked the first X-Men movie. I like Wolverine's claws. I like Cyclops' eye blast. I love, like you said, I love to see, the powers. Because like before, you didn't really see powers being used. This was the first time you could actually be like, I wonder if he can really do that. I mean, it gave you that kind of a feeling. Of course, it was a movie, but it just did. It gave you, this is good.
Yeah.
The action scenes were nice. The dialogue, the storytelling. I love the beginning of it when Wolverine woke up and, Professor X is talking to him through his mind. And he's like, what in the world's going on? So I just, while he's teaching class, so I just love that whole bit. So, but, of course, was not completely accurate, but they tried and they did good with that one, I think.
They did, and I think they did even better with the second one. The second one's a great movie, I think, and was kind of like, I think, the high watermark comic book until The Dark Knight came along.
Yeah.
My personal opinion. I mean, people point to the Spider-Man movies, but that second X-Men movie really has everything you want in a movie.
In that movie, the second one taught me just how dangerous Nightcrawler was. I never really. I said, okay, you can teleport. That's cool. You can go to the store. What else can you do there? But when he went in there to get the president, and I saw how he was, wrecking shop, I was like, teleportation is pretty cool, man. I want to teleport now. So, I really like how they did that. And they never made anybody's power look weak or silly. Everybody who had a power was awesome. Even Toad, even though he was in the first one. And then some of the cartoons.
They made him a little too awesome, I think. He wasn't that cool.
He wasn't that cool. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was about to say. He wasn't that cool.
They should have taken some of that cool factor and put it on Storm. I mean, Storm was was one of the things I did like that and Sabretooth.
Okay.
Were the weak parts. They should have cast Angelica.
Yeah, I know. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Bassett or
Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
Angela. Oh,
That's who they should have cast.
Oh, Angela Bassett as Storm would have been. I ain't never thought about that.
That's what I'm thinking about, right? Did she play Tina Turner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's who I thought they should have cast. But, Halle Berry, she's a good actress. I think she was just a little miscast because she tried to do that accent in the first movie.
Oh yeah.
And it didn't return for the second movie.
Yeah, Angela Bassett would have been.
She would have killed it.
Yeah, she would. Oh man, very good observation. That never even came to my mind. Like, ooh, Angela Bassett as Storm.
My kid fantasy cast.
Hey, that's every guy's, fantasy to see Angela Bassett.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Third movie, third X-Men, not so great.
The third.
They dropped the ball.
Look, man, they dropped it and kicked it, so they couldn't even pick it up. It was so off the mark. When I almost didn't go see it because I saw in the previews I saw Juggernaut. I was like, maybe that's just something maybe they're doing something different. Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe this ain't the Juggernaut. You know what I'm saying? It can't be. I said maybe he was. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I said, well, they're gonna fix him in the movie. They didn't want to show too much. So he's gonna be the Juggernaut, and then you get in there and you're like, man.
So you didn't like the Juggernaut in the third one? A lot of
No.
people don't. One of the highlights of the film for me.
Really?
Well, I mean, I know that they're not gonna. Well, I did until, of course, CGI got so good that they actually did it in Daredevil movie. But I was like, they're never gonna make Juggernaut look like he's supposed to. Like this guy at least has got a cool, fun accent. Kind of an attitude about him. And I liked how he was just kind of, I'm the Juggernaut.
Yeah.
I'd seen that actor before in like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, so I was familiar with him.
Okay.
Vinnie Jones.
But see, the thing about it, as we all know, the Juggernaut isn't a mutant. So
They're not gonna get that right.
So I'm like, for them to do that, it just kind of, it just. I was like, all right, man, because see, in with the Juggernaut in the comics, everybody had to fight this Ross. Everybody had to go in and get him. It just wasn't one person. One person against the Juggernaut, that's an L. Everybody had to get this dude, and so for them to downgrade him to where he ran into a wall and knocked himself out, I was like, man, somebody need to give me my money back now. Because no, how in the world, fuck? And then that's when you start to realize, wait a minute, they never read the comic, they never watched the cartoon, do they even know who the X-Men are? How do you not know this? So and this is something I think they do a lot with movies. They try to put too much in there. They try to bring too many characters to the movie, and to me, that's dumb. Of course, everybody wants to see these characters because we love them, but don't rush it. Don't oversaturate the movie with all these characters that everybody wants to see, because you can't put all of these characters in here and have a good movie. You just can't.
Well, they did a good job in the second movie with doing that, but they had kind of already spent the first movie establishing most of the main characters, right?
Yeah.
And then in the third movie, I think the biggest problem is they had just two storylines that were competing. They had the Dark Phoenix, and then they had the Cure storyline. And I feel like they should have gone with the Cure storyline. That's the one that has the tie-up at the end.
Yeah.
The Dark Phoenix storyline, there's no way you're going to do that in one movie.
In one movie. See, too much. Yeah. You're trying to get, we want to see the Phoenix. So, look, man, you got to do all that.
That's kind of the fans' fault for demanding to see more of the Phoenix.
Yeah. But they should be like, that's stupid. We're not doing that. You're right. The fans want to see it, so let's give the fans what they want.
Same reason they shoehorned Venom into that third Spider-Man movie.
Should not have done it. Yeah. Should not have done it.
Should have just done the Green Goblin.
Finish the Green Goblin. Yeah, they did. They did that. They had the Sandman. Yeah, we wanted to see that, but just take it a little slower. That's why, and I appreciate some of the way the new Marvel movies went, because they gave you that little bit of drip. You just got that morphine drip. They build you up because
this is a kid show, by the way.
Oh, kid show, yes, kid show. But everybody's had morphine. What am I? I'm not apologizing. Let me stop. I'm just joking. Don't take morphine, kids. But they did that. So you had those end credits. So you were like, it got you ready. And then they didn't give you that in the next movie. They gave you a whole different movie. And you were like, okay. So then you're waiting for, how's this going to tie? And then at the end of that movie, the end credits, they gave you something else that wasn't even tied to the first one. And they just kept building and building and building and building until it all came together, in Avengers. And you were like, yeah. So, yeah. And, speaking of Avengers and their team, there was another movie that came out that you're pretty good with and know a little bit about, the Fantastic Four. Okay, so what are your thoughts on, so there's been what, 3, 4 Fantastic Four movies now? 3?
The two Fox movies directed by Tim Story. There was the Josh Trank one.
Okay.
And then there was Roger Corman.
Okay.
So my favorite of those is the Roger Corman.
Okay.
Though I do like the Tim Story Fantastic Fours. They're not perfect, but they get it pretty close. The Josh Trank one, that's just now, the sad thing is that the first half of that Josh Trank movie is actually pretty watchable.
Yeah.
Because it follows a little bit of the ultimate Fantastic Four storyline, which is that Reed Richards is just this genius that gets recruited by these scientists in the Baxter Building, where he discovers the negative zone, and the negative zone is where all of these strange phenomenons, supervillains and stuff come out of. Grounded it in like a bit of reality. I think that's what the Josh Trank Fantastic Four went for, but then it gets to the second half of the movie, and then it just turns into
pudding.
Well,
yeah.
Pudding.
I like pudding, but I'm not gonna say that. So it wasn't gumbo. Let's say that.
Yeah. Gumbo's delicious.
It is. So it wasn't.
Yeah, but the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies I actually quite like, except for Doctor Doom.
Okay.
Doctor Doom in the first movie is terrible. In the second movie, Rise of the Silver Surfer, though, when he gets to the point where he puts his mask on, I feel like that's actually Doctor Doom, because he does what Doctor Doom does. He steals the Silver Surfer's board. That's right out of the comics, and I love every minute of it. But there's just not enough of that.
No, that was all the way at the end.
Exactly.
And then they by the time he was really getting good, they figured out how to stop him.
Right. I like Michael Chiklis as the Thing.
Okay, I did. I liked him.
Chris Evans as the Human Torch was great. Jessica Alba, the other dude who played Mr. Fantastic.
I can't think his name right now.
That was the weakest part, but I like those movies. They're fine.
Yeah.
The Roger Corman though feels the most like the Fantastic Four to me.
Okay, so
have you ever seen that?
I have not seen that.
It'll give you a good laugh.
Okay.
The guy who's playing Doom is so passionate, I love this guy. The costume looks accurate, but they just didn't have enough money to mic him.
Okay.
So he's talking the whole time like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's intentionally bad and laughable.
Okay.
But it's pretty accurate. I mean, they have stuff that you don't. They have the Mole Man.
Oh, okay.
They have Doctor Doom. They have what else do they have? The Puppet Master. I mean, they've got a lot of Fantastic Four stuff in it.
Okay. I would definitely have to check that one out.
Yeah. The new one coming out though.
Okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the new one?
I didn't like the trailer. That's sad.
Oh, okay.
I don't like the voice of the Thing. It should be rocky like this, Should be. I don't know. Just don't show me the Thing doing finesse stuff. That's a nice thing to add at the end to give him just a little character touch. Don't show me that in the trailer.
Okay.
I want to see his clobbering time.
Right. I feel you. So, what are your thoughts on the the casting on that?
I think I like Pedro Pascal. I just feel like he's a little overused, and he's like in everything now. Like, are there any other actors out there that could do this? He'll probably do a good job. The other two, I'm not too familiar with.
Okay.
I like that they're setting it in the '60s. I think that's the right decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Make it a period piece because the Fantastic Four is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
So I'll give it a chance and hope it's good. Nervous about how they're going to tie it into the MCU.
Man, that's the roll of the dice. You don't know what you're going to get.
I mean, they'll probably explore it like something, or get involved in something and they'll go through a wormhole and end up in the MCU.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I don't know how they're gonna tie, because the X-Men are supposed to be coming into the MCU.
If this movie has Galactus in it,
which I think it does, perhaps maybe
I won't like it.
Oh, you won't?
No.
Okay.
Galactus is the in-level threat.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, the whole purpose of him in the comics was they wanted the Fantastic Four had fought all these numerous villains. Who could they fight? Like, who was left to fight? And they came up, why don't we have the Fantastic Four fight God?
Yeah.
That was a concept.
Right.
That's an in-level villain. That's not somebody in the first film.
I agree. Maybe they won't have. I mean, I know in the trailer you see like the silhouette of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just a teaser, for things to come. Hopefully you're right, because I agree. Here again, you can't have your main villain in the first movie. I mean, you build up to that. That's the whole thing, and you could always have something happen, and then they start figuring out, well, what was going on? Why was it? And it was Galactus, if you want to, in the last movie or the third, installment, and there you go. And then it comes together. See that again, that kids, close your ears. That morphine drip, so it gives you that to make you ready to see the rest of them. Yeah. You go ahead and throw them in there. It's like, oh well, I seen Galactus. Who's coming next?
You don't make Iron Man fight Thanos in the second Iron Man movie or the first Iron Man movie. Like,
right.
You give it a tease.
Yeah.
You build it up. You tear down your heroes.
Yes.
You make them at their lowest point, and then you bring them in.
And then so how are they gonna come back to get to win? Right. That's what we all look for when we read comic books, because that's what always happened. They always got their booty spanked, and then you were like, and that's how the issue ended. You were like, what? And so what happened? You were waiting for the next one to come out, and the next one came out, and you might still didn't get resolved. They still might have been getting their booty spanked until that fourth or fifth issue, and then they finally rally, and you like, oh snap, and then that just made you love your heroes even more.
Exactly. It's like it's Spider-Man. It's like Spider-Man goes out and fights, the Lizard, barely defeats him, and crawls back home. He's so tired, and then he gets into his bedroom, and boom, there's the Green Goblin.
Yeah, and the issue ends, and you're like, oh, snap, and so yeah, but hopefully Marvel will get it right and do.
So. Nobody's got it right since Roger Corman.
We'll see.
Now the cartoons that they've had over the years have been pretty good. I don't remember a lot of them, but there was one in the '90s, I think, that I saw a couple episodes of. But I don't think Fantastic Four's had a good cartoon run, except for the one in the '60s.
Yeah, that really yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't alive in the '60s, but I've seen those. And yeah, those were pretty good. I like those. Matter of fact, I kind of like all the ones, even though they had the corny dialogue. Well, it's corny now if you listen to it. Well, not to me, but because I love it. But people may still say, "Oh, that's corny." But back when I was watching it, man, it was. Oh man, it was.
I'm sure that you probably saw. I'm positive I saw Fantastic Four and Spider-Man from the '60s reruns growing up in the '70s. Yeah. I'm sure I did, along with Super Friends and stuff. I mean, you probably did too.
I'm sure I did.
There's like a collective memory of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but I loved all of that. All it just made me love these heroes even more, and the villains.
Now, did you watch any of the made-for-TV Spider-Man movies and Captain America movies?
I did remember seeing them, and I was happy watching them back then. Watching them now versus the movie. You're like, oh, okay. But back then they were amazing. They had you glued because your heroes are up there.
Well, that Spider-Man from the Spider-Man TV series that they used to have, that's kind of my Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That imprinted in my brain. If Spider-Man were real, that's what he would look like.
Yeah.
So when the Spider-Man movies started coming out with Tobey Maguire and I see him in costume, I was like, that's not Spider-Man.
That's not Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's got like creases in his suit.
Yeah.
Spider-man's got he's got these goggles on.
Right.
When I draw Spider-Man now, I draw him like this.
Okay. And I think they try to pay homage to that when he went in with Tom McGuire when he first made the suit. Was kind of when he went to wrestle, it was kind of weird looking with the goggles and stuff. Right. They might have been trying to.
I love the web shooters on the outside.
Oh,
he had the web shooter belt.
Yeah,
that made sense.
It did.
Where else are you gonna put those web shooters?
Right, exactly. So. I mean, all of that just and of course I just love the song, from the cartoon, right. that's imprinted in my brain as far as what Spider-Man.
It works. I love that it works its way into all the movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's in there.
Somewhere
it's in there, so that's good. Then I love chatting with you, coming in, especially talking about the accuracy of these movies versus the cartoons.
Can we leave at this song? Are we about to wrap it up here?
In a few minutes, yeah. In
Okay.
a few minutes, we'll wrap it up.
I'd love a prediction on where you think the MCU is going to go.
See, that's
it's taking a beating the last.
It's taking,
few years.
yeah. That's a. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to roll in the dice, boy. I'm going to say they learn from their mistakes.
I hope so.
That's what I'm going to say. They went back and they looked at everything, and they're like, this didn't work. We tried this, we tried that. That is not working. What did we do that worked? And go back and look and see and say, that worked. Let's do that again, or build off of that and fix this, and get the fans back. Because if this fails, they might as well not ever do another movie again. They might as well cut superhero movies out and just.
Is there one thing you think they could do to kind of course correct?
Yeah. Read the comics.
That's a good one. My advice for course correct, if I could just give one advice to whoever's running things over there, I would say, and I hate to say this, but like more realism. Like less of the hokiness, because I'm tired of seeing I can suspend my imagination when Spider-Man and Captain America jumps around on buildings.
Yeah.
When people who don't have superpowers do it, you lose me.
Yeah.
Like that's for superheroes to do. If everybody can do that, they're not super.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's James.
They just ground it just a little.
Yeah.
Come on, Mark, pull it back. I've spent my entire childhood wishing to see superpowers on screen, and now I'm seeing it, and I'm like, well, maybe dial it back.
Dial it back just a little bit. Because James is jumping over buildings. Who is James? I don't know. He lives next door.
Yeah. I want to see Rick Jones Daredevil.
Yeah. That's a very good point. But I really, because some of the writers have even come out and that's what they say. Oh, we never really read it. Then why are you writing anything? Go sit down over there. You don't know what you're doing.
And one of the things that you probably notice when you're not following the comics is that you start to lose the logic point of how things work.
Yeah.
Like this thing happened in this one movie right here, and they're trying to make it accurate to the comics, but later on they change it to what it is, and now it no longer
fits right.
Up.
It is like, see that?
I think the movies has a problem with that. Comics has a problem with that too, but it's a little easier to cheat.
Yeah, it is. You can just write something in there. You put it on the big screen. It's locked in. Right. So yeah. So Dean, I'm going to ask you this question: what have you been up to, and what you got going on? You still doing your comics and everything? Still drawing. So tell us a little bit about that. Since we talked about comics and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got my fantasy series. It's an ongoing fantasy series called The Lord of Dirt. And I'm just now releasing that on Global Comics. That's an app you can download. Global Comics. Search for Dean, Dean, Garris, Garris. And I'll also be putting some other comics. I've got some random, some web, some like a web series, some kids comics. I'm going to throw it all up there on Global Comics. Just search for my name.
So Global Comics, and look for Dean Garris.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I look forward to it because I'm a big fan of Lord of Dirt. I read, that one, and this.
As soon as I get it up there, I'll send you like a promo code.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna read it. I prefer the paper, so I can have you sign it and have autograph.
Gotta get them printed up.
Yeah, right. But I love it. So man, that's great that you got them out there. You said Global Comics.
Global Comics. It's an app. Download it. You can find my comics there. If you're in the North Carolina area, I'll be at Heroes Con down in Charlotte in June, I believe. So
okay.
If you want to get a physical copy, come see me there.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. go see Dean Garris. Check him out. You will not be disappointed. Great comic, great artist. Dean, thank you so very much for being here with the Parallel Universe and the Square Table Studios. It's been a pleasure as always, man. You're welcome here anytime, man. Anytime you got something on your mind and you wanna get it out, man, let me know and we can make it happen.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, man. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Logan.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for the support. Couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate all the love that you guys show us here at the Parallel Universe, and we're going to keep doing this as long as you want, as long as I want, as long as everybody wants. We're going to keep doing this. So thank you guys, and as always, we'll see you in the Parallel Universe.